We're stranded. Completely, Turlough, until we find any Artronium. We might as well explore then. Anyway, where are we? I don't know, Turlough. I'm Lithaen, I'm a fire spirit, and you're both being imprisoned for life. This is Elaborator, the new head of defence here at the prison. Actually, I'm the Elaborator, and I have some very interesting plans for our new prisoner. The Minister of War, Turlough, is my future self, tortured and driven insane by the Elaborator. Who do you think is behind that door, Doctor? The Minister. He's here. The Beginning of Time, Chapter 3, by Charlie Buckley. The hard tap of heels on polished marble used to be infuriating to Lithaen, but had since become rather soothing, a small piece of satisfaction in the dark world she found herself in. Head hung and arms tightly pressed to her sides, Lithaen continued, the glare of crimson flame illuminating the nondescript grey walls the colour of blood. They might as well be smothered in it, Lithaen thought to herself. She stepped into a lift and the doors slid swiftly, no noise heard, and Lithaen ascended to the upper levels of the National Prison of Karritios. The atrium of the prison always intimidated Lithaen as it had for the last 600 years. The bright golden plaque, the motto in the strange language, and the dominating jet-black walls, which crushed from all sides. "Delivered the prisoner's calter," Lithaen murmured, as she passed the desk of an azure-skinned man with a cheery smile. The tap of Lithaen's heels turned to clangs as she exited the prison and headed to the outer rim of the city. Enormous structures stood proudly within the gargantuan cavern the city was located in, as if gods towering above their worshippers. The vast network of interconnected tunnels truly was a labyrinth of staircases and passageways, as Lithaen walked along them, and, after around 10 minutes of walking, proceeded to exit at a lavish corridor leading once more into the city's centre. The stones were of a faded black, and were almost soft to stand on, and a green carpet lined with golden seams laid upon it. The building it led to was no different, black banners emblazoned with silver Ks, waving gently in the underground breeze, surrounded by green flames which smouldered with eerie light and dominated over Lithaen's flame, making it appear weak. "Lithaen Karritios," the commanding voice spoke. Now inside, the building didn't appear much different and seemed to only consist of one large hall, 3 thrones at the end. At least, that's what Lithaen had been told. The end of the room was in complete blackness, and only voices could be heard. Lithaen had only known somebody who had dared venture to the end of the hall. His last words. "It has been 100 years since your last obedience reinforcement, and we believe you are becoming too independent." The voice was powerful and commanding, the kind of voice which could shatter minds. "What are you talking about?" spoke Lithaen, sarcastic nature subdued in front of superiors. "Why do I need obedience reinforcement? I've never needed that before." The voice chuckled, a deep, resounding noise which caused small stones to fly from crevices, hitting the ground with soft taps. "Ha ha ha. Yes, Lithaen, you have. You just can't remember it. You have been hypnotized into doing our bidding for the last 600 years, and take this as a little reminder." A stream of black light lashed out from the oblivion, separate coils whipping and twisting around each other. It stopped abruptly at Lithaen's forehead, before lashing through it. Flame roared in Lithaen's hands and hair, an intense crimson. Her eyes bulged and turned black. Then Lithaen began to scream. "Doctor, so the Minister of War, or a future version of him anyway, hunted you through your time stream, once at each incarnation?" asked Turlough. The pair had been in prison for around 1 hour, and the confinement was already getting to them both. Turlough, while not visible to the Doctor, was pacing around the cell, desperately scheming a daring escape to no avail. The Doctor on the other side of the sleek white wall was a bit calmer, much more collected, eyes closed and face resting, blonde hair sweeping across his face lazily. "Yes, that's right, Turlough. In my first body, he tried to get to me by tormenting my friend Ian in a dream state, making him hallucinate the wildest things, even Vashtinarada, for heaven's sake. In my second, he created a parallel universe where Daleks overran Earth in the year 1968. He captured me for months before my friends rescued me and he regenerated. In my third, he invaded Akaten with an army of Cybermen, and he tried to turn my friend Joe into one. That was when I found out he was me. And in your fourth? Turlough queried, staring thoughtfully at the ground as if trying to interpret this information. In my fourth, the minister captured Davros and forced him to force me into going on a wild goose chase to hunt down some assassins that had actually died centuries ago. We then flew around his mind for a bit and he told me his backstory in a 25-minute long chunk of exposition. And then he died. Turlough's eyes widened. He died? Why? I don't really know Turlough. That was the last time I saw him, and now he's probably here, in his prison, before he hunted me down. Meaning he's going to escape, and the Elaborator is going to succeed in finishing his job. And what's his job? Creating the ultimate Time Lord. Okay then, replied Turlough. I don't really know how to respond to that. You don't need to, Turlough. I'd just like to get out of here and stop the Elaborator. As if on cue, a fire spirit walked past, crimson licks of flame dancing from her hair. Hello, Lithaen, spoke the doctor. Come to mock us both, have you? With a soft whir, the blue shields keeping the Doctor and Turlough contained slid upwards. The pair's eyes widened in shock simultaneously, eyebrows raising in unison. The pair strode promptly out of their cells, a resounding whir following. Don't make me regret this, ordered Lithaen, and for a second a flicker of a smile lined her face. You both need to come with me. We need to talk. The doctor glanced at Turlough and raised a blonde eyebrow. Turlough shrugged and began to follow Lithaen, who was already striding toward the lift, heels on marble creating a relentless rhythm, Doctor in tow. Lithaen, we're both extremely grateful for you freeing us. We will forever be in your debt. But why did you let us out? Out of curiosity, of course. Lithaen paused her pace and glanced around, flame seeming smothered. I can't tell you here. For a few seconds, she seemed genuinely worried, eyes glazed with terror and panic. For a few seconds. Sorry, but I know something that nobody else does, and I need to tell you both in a secure location. The pair had now reached the lobby of the National Prison of Karritios. Yes, speaking of that, interrupted the doctor, removing his battered cream fedora and raising a finger, I kind of have matters of my own to attend to. The doctor stood straighter, shoulders squared. He adjusted the emerald-coloured celery on his lapel and flipped his fedora around a finger before resting it on his head. See you if I'm alive, I suppose. The doctor glanced at Turlough and Lithaen before giving them both a small smile. He sprinted down the corridor, clangs of his feet resounding against the walls, and headed straight for the Elaborator's office. Pain, suffering, torment. The only concept the Minister of War, formerly the Doctor, had known for the last 4 billion years. The room the Minister now sat in was battered, to say the least. It was made of a glistening metal, a solitary flickering light illuminating the room in eerie shades of darkness. Dents and scratches, burns and marks littered the walls, signs of agony and breaking. The Minister himself sat hunched in a corner, dark shadows beneath weary eyes. A gash ran along his face, last remnants of blood dripping along his cloak and hitting the ground with a splash. His eye was sliced vertically in half, giving it a cloudy manner, a grey misty appearance which frightened even himself. The Minister wore clothes fashioned by his own will, heavy armour resilient to over 53.2 trillion megatons of explosives. The arms and legs were adorned with silver spikes, small traces of dried blood encrusted on them. They came to points at wrists and ankles with skulls, and a series of white-hot chains were strapped around himself. A shriek-like squeak resounded from metallic walls, followed by the silhouette of a man, tall and slender. He stepped into the light of the room and glanced at eye level with the Minister, as the Minister stood and removed a sword of black energy from its sheath. The Elaborator before him had slicked back greasy hair and wore a silky lavish pinstripe suit. Puffs of black smoke wreathed around the Elaborator, apparent source being a single mahogany pipe which he held limply. Minister, he spoke, voice positively dripping with malice, your next surgery is due. After this, the Enlightenment will be ready. He turned on his polished heel and gestured a leathery gloved hand, beckoning the Minister to follow. The Minister stayed. You can't do this to me, he screamed. The Minister ran forward, launching toward the Elaborator. Blades protruded from his wrist as he sprung forward and leaped, a shadow which blotted all light reflecting from the Elaborator. The minister paused. He hung in mid-air, muscles straining, as an aura of green light surrounded him. Hair plastered to his face and his eyes concentrated, the minister shouted as he tried to escape the temporary prison he found himself in, but to no avail. Minister, I would be infuriated, but this has happened every day since I arrived. The interesting part is you never learn. You keep trying to kill me, but you can't. Now, you're going to have one more surgery, and then your enlightenment shall occur. We shall be unstoppable. Brain over brawn is wise, but both is even wiser, Minister of War. Now come, Minister. This shall be all over in about an hour. The Elaborator flicked his hand, and turned once more, a resounding clang emanating from metallic walls as the Minister fell and readjusted himself. As the Minister walked forward and out of his cell, the room he found himself in was horrific, torn with 1,000 screams. The dingy green lighting only highlighted the awfulness of the place. A hospital bed lay in the room's centre, stained deep red, rusted sores caked in dried blood, hung from poorly plastered walls. The only other light source in the room was displayed on a stone pedestal, an orb to be precise. It consisted mostly of intense light, which battled the green aura for domination, with one sliver of stone orbiting it smoothly. You know the drill by now, Minister? Spoke the Elaborator lazily, as he grabbed a pair of scissors from a nearby rack and plucked the stone sliver from the orb. The orb grew brighter, more intense, screaming with energy. The Minister removed the chains from himself and threw them to the ground, a series of resounding clinks following. Before long, the Minister lay stilly in the hospital bed, eyes winced and preparing for pain. The Elaborator walked from the orb of enlightenment, a stone sliver clasped in scissors, and placed it in a nearby tray nonchalantly. A scraping noise rang, and a rusted saw hung from the Elaborator's hand. A wicked smile was sprawled across his face, eyes glinted and glazed with mirth. I'm so sorry, Minister. The Elaborator grinned, raised the serrated saw above his head, and plunged it into the Minister's chest. Then the screaming started. Where exactly is it we're going, Lithaen? Queried Turlough as he hurried to catch up with her swift pace. The pair were now walking along the city's outer rim once more, the same network of tunnels in which Turlough had arrived here in a rather strange way. They turned right abruptly and into the rock face, heading into a burrow of claustrophobic metallic tunnels in which Turlough crouched slightly. You'll find out, murmured Lithaen, as she halted by a metal trapdoor built into the floor. It seemed ramshackle, corrugated metal made up most of it, and its opening mechanism seemed worn as if used over centuries. A series of beeps emanated from the keypad fitted into the wall in which Lithaen now typed in. Turlough could make out a series of numbers, 030905. A puff of gas wafted from the mechanism, and the trapdoor whirred open to reveal a room in which Lithaen slipped into. Turlough rolled blue eyes before following, pushing his legs through and then letting his arms go, coming to crouch in a panther-like stance on the floor of what seemed like a laboratory. The walls were of a sleek blue, similarly cobalt light dotted around the walls and placed in long strips in the crevices where wall met ceiling. An array of monitors lined the furthermost wall, a labyrinth of wires and machines connecting them in a manner both unorthodox and practical. On the leftmost wall, a row of oaken bookcases displayed cluttered messes of thick tomes, no speck of dust visible to Turlough. A desk was centred in the middle, a buzzing red lamp giving light to sprawling messes of notes, books, and what appeared to be blueprints. Turlough simply stood, eyes darting across the space in wonder. It's brilliant. Thank you, replied Lithaen curtly, another small smile across her face. I built this 100 years ago, somewhere a bit nicer than my assigned apartment by the gods of Karritios. Lithaen sat herself in a blue foamy chair and rolled, the trundle of wheels on stone echoing throughout the room. Who? Queried Turlough, as he moved his gaze from the array of computer screens and toward Lithaen. The gods of Karritios, all-powerful beings that supposedly created Karritios 4 billion years ago as a refuge if we ever needed one. Thankfully we did. Yeah, about that. Turlough clenched his jaw, eyebrows knotted and small droplets of sweat forming on his brow. The surface is safe, Lithaen. There is no lethal radiation. I figured as much. Lithaen sighed and spun to the computer. The larger central monitor displayed a black screen in which commands had been typed endlessly. The gods of Karritios are corrupt, Turlough. They have enslaved the population of Karritios for the last 100,000 years through the use of psionic waves, in essence, mind control. Turlough's eyes widened. Well, that's a lot to take in. I assume you freed me to start a rebellion? Turlough raised his eyebrow and smiled, which miraculously Lithaen returned. Yes, we are. These blueprints here, she gestured to the maps and diagrams which littered her desk, are of Section 0, a confidential governmental building in which the gods of Karritios' mind-controlled workers send psionic waves through broadcast frequencies. That's how they get to the population. We, Turlough, are going to launch a full-scale assault on Section 0 and free the population. Then, the rebellion shall begin. Sounds like a plan, agreed Turlough. Step, step, step. Every step the doctor took placed more weight on him. His knees were weak, arms heavy, a sheen of sweat coating his face, which grew relentlessly every time the doctor wiped it off with his blazer's sleeve. Calm down, Doctor. Focus. No one ever got anywhere by stressing, he thought to himself. With a soft whirring, the doors of the lift opened, and the doctor stepped in. They closed, and the doctor began his descent into hell. The corridors became darker as they flitted past, and dreadful sense of inertia overcame the doctor as the lift moved faster down, floors flitting past as merely blurry grey blots. A calm female voice spoke as he neared the final floor. National Prison of Karritios, floor negative 1963. Have fun in prison. The doctor strode further. Doctor, I fear I'm nearing the end of my life, and unfortunately I've spent most of it scared. Well, not today, Doctor, not today. Today is a day of courage, of honour, and most of all, of redemption. You are going to find the Minister of War, and you are going to get him out of here. His transformation into godhood has not yet reached fruition yet, and I'm going to make sure it never does. Now stop the Elaborator, Doctor. Stop him! The doctor thought to himself. His mere dawdle turned into a more confident stride, into a jog, and finally into a sprint, long strides decreasing the distance between him and his future self. His eyebrows knotted together, fire in his heart growing stronger as he raced toward the Elaborator's office. The doctor stopped. 2 doors resided at the end of the corridor. The first was of a battered metal, scrapes, burns, and convex marks in its surface. A series of rusted chains were wrapped around it, and tendrils of black-purple energy wreathed around it, as if in warning. The second door was wooden and painted white, no windows in its surface. The doctor took a deep breath and rapped his knuckles 4 times against the door. Another 4. Another 4. Another 4. Another 4. A squeak, and the door opened slightly. The doctor stepped into the room. What the doctor saw before him was interesting, to say the least. The walls were of a dull off-white and were chipped and cracked. Racks containing rusted knives and chainsaws hung from walls, and a tray containing vials of blood resided on a jet-black linoleum floor. The centre of the room, however, was what struck the doctor as most disturbing, for a hospital bed resided in its centre. On it was strapped none other than the Minister of War. Brown locks of hair plastered to his face, his chest riddled with gashes and scars. Stood beside him was the Elaborator, eyes glinting with malice, holding a rusted sword dripping with wet blood which splattered onto the floor. The thing that horrified the doctor the most, however, was the minister's torso, for an open gash had been carved along his chest, ribcage spliced open, revealing twin hearts, each with slivers of black poked inside. The minister craned his neck to look at the doctor. Doctor, the Elaborator craned his neck also. So glad you could make it. So, to be continued. So this was The Beginning of Time, Chapter 3 by Charlie Buckley, me. I really hope you enjoyed this, guys. I had so much fun writing and recording it. Please do like and comment and, maybe even subscribe if you feel like it. My aim is to get to 250 by the end of this year, so I'd really appreciate it if you did, and please just comment below with your opinions on this. I would love to hear what you guys thought of it, whether it be constructive criticism or positive feedback. I don't really mind. Anyway, next video is going to be Wednesday, 3 days time, a top 10 places and times the Doctor should visit. It is actually based off a video by Doctor Who Adventures. So yes, I again really hope you enjoyed this video. Please do, feel free to comment below. I again don't mind. So yes, Chapter 4 will be coming next Saturday, and Chapter 5 the Saturday afterwards, followed by Age of Chaos, the epic finale to all of this. 6 parts long, it's a bit of a chonker. Anyway, yeah, see you guys next time, and goodbye.